Hayley, thank you so much for being here. Like,
Thanks for having me.
you worked a shift in Emerge this morning. You drove into the city. You've probably already been to the Leafs. Like, you're just go, go, go. And for you to be here in person, it warms my heart. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks. Clearly, I didn't get the memo about like dressing up. I thought we were just going to be on audio. So here I am.
I normally you forever and always an athlete. Did you not know that? And athletes can always get away with being in their athletic gear. I mean, if the chef comes, I just interviewed Chef Joe Friday not long ago, and he came up in his, white little chef thing.
Perfect.
Yeah, so it's all good.
If I'm not in scrubs, I'm kind of in something like this most days. So
it makes for a probably very efficient wardrobe. You don't have to spend gobs of money on designer clothes.
It's actually the tracksuit to the scrubs. It's great. Yeah. So one benefit about going into medicine, though, you still have a uniform.
You still have a uniform, thank God.
Yeah.
I have this really beautiful memory of you, and you won't remember because it was so long ago, but 2010 Olympics, such a great Olympics. Canada won the gold on Canadian soil, and my little girl was there. I remember that. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
With her braces and her glasses,
I remember I was so excited to meet Silken Laumann. It was so cool for me. So I remember that moment like very vividly. That was a great Olympics.
Was that the first moment that we met?
I think like actually saying hello. I mean, I had always admired you from afar, and but I don't think we had really met before then. I remember you came up and said hi and had your daughter.
Well, I mean, she still has that photo. She's now, 24 years old. Road. We were talking about our kids earlier.
Yeah.
Before we got on air here, and we were talking about how sometimes when you have parents that were such athletes, you go the other way. But both my kids actually did row for a little while, and my daughter ended up being very strong in academics and went to Harvard, and that was kind of her dream come true. But she really held that as a special memory, and I held it as a really special memory. And you probably know that when you do what you did in sport, for the reasons that you did, for the love of the sport, for the desire, for the passion, and that came through so clearly when I read your book. And I was reading and I was like, oh my God, this girl, when you were a girl, had so much drive. Like, you were on fire.
Yeah, I was it was never a problem.
But I was like, no, it's called Over the Boards. And I'm thinking, yeah, and overboard, like she just, and another thing that just, so that, like, that was probably my number one thing from the book was like, oh my gosh, like this woman is at least as intense as I was in the sport. And like, even in rowing, I was intense, like even on the national team.
I know.
Right. So it's like, you take your intensity, and that's not always easy, right? It's not always easy on it, even in a team environment when you're almost more intense than anybody else on your team. Was that ever a thing for you, like on the women's team?
Yeah. Well, it was. It's funny because you talk about your intensity, but I remember like watching you row with my dad, and my dad would be like, look at how she could suffer. And, we would know, but it was just like an admirable thing about like the pain and the intensity and the drive that it takes to be the best at what you're doing. It's not a normal thing, but I don't think you can be normal in those circumstances to and then try to be the best in what you're doing. So for me, I don't know, it was like individual sport, but in a team sport, you had to really check that at times. So I was always driven and intense.
Yeah.
And I could take it too far at times, where I would either take a dumb penalty or my teammates would be like, calm down, or whatever it would be. And at a younger age, I was not as good at channeling that energy. And as I became an older athlete, I became much better at like channeling that into productive energy, and then also learning how to like relax at the same time. That could actually help performance. You didn't have to be like 10 out of 10 fired up all the time.
10 out of 10. That's exactly like, I just remember never wanting to be beaten in anything. And I just got that sense like you were not going to let anybody beat you kind of ever. Is that true?
It's true. Yeah. I didn't want to lose pretty much anything. Yeah. I think that part of it was, as a female and male-dominated sport, it was always like, I have to prove you wrong. Like, someone's always telling you don't belong here, go somewhere else, do something else. And it's like, well, I'll show you, I'll prove you. So that I like, when I'm not on my playing field, I'm actually a very calm person, pretty laid back. But as soon as I stepped into that world, it was like, look out. So,
I'm not a hockey person. I admitted this to you a couple times. It's not that I don't love hockey. I just haven't been exposed to it that much. I don't know that much about the game. But your fire, your excellence was so apparent. But I don't think I knew, when I was reading your book, I didn't know how physical hockey was, but also when you played with the boys, like it seemed like you became a target.
Oh yeah.
And I got to tell you, that surprised me. I guess I just assumed that there would be more respect, not let's nail Hayley.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, at that time, like as a little girl, so between like 5 and 12 years old, you were sort of a body to fill a team in a small town. Yes, Shaunavon, where I came from in Saskatchewan. And then as I got older, things got...
But you were the only girl.
I was most of the time the only girl, yes. Yeah, and then I remember I was mid at AAA, so I was 15 years old, and I made the team, and then partway into the season, the coach cut me just because I was a girl.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I can't handle having a girl on the team. He was very honest. But as I got older, then I played professional men's hockey in Europe. I started to realize every time I stepped on the ice, I was going to have a target on my back. And so many times my coaches would say, okay, watch out for number 10 and number 12. They're going to try and get you today. Or you always knew it was 1 or 2 players from the other team that were sort of out to get you. So I definitely played with a bit of a chip on my shoulder and a target on my back.
Yeah.
And I knew that came with the territory. And yeah, I think that's just...
but like, it intellectually, but like how did it feel? Like, did you cry? Like, did you yell? Did you like, if something hits you, that would be my reaction, I think.
I would hit back.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely wasn't gonna wither and cry. That was not me. My reaction was, my dad would always say, show them on the scoreboard. So put the puck in the net. That's what I could do well, score, prove them wrong that way. And then I could take it for so long. And then I remember one time I was playing professional men's hockey in Sweden, and I was taking hit after hit, and I had finally had enough. It was the final game of the season, and I lost it on the sky. I got kicked out of the game, and I went into my own dressing room. Yeah, I ripped all my equipment off. I threw it across the room. I just had enough of that type of abuse that I had to take. But for the most part, it was I'll show you by putting the puck in the net.
I mean, part of, obviously, the physicality, I rowed, we had our lanes, we hit each other. I mean, I actually did manage to make rowing a physical sport by being hit by another boat, but generally, we stayed in our lanes. But I mean, hockey obviously is physical. You get used to being hit. I mean, I hear hockey players talking about it all the time, but I think it's like that idea that you're a target. And so not only are you a woman doing something totally new, you're playing in a professional league, you're, paving a way. And is that why you were a target, do you think? Because guys didn't want you there? They didn't want you to see that, a woman could play their game and on their level?
Yeah, for sure. And at the time that I played, no one had ever done it before at the level that I was doing it at. And then for a woman to play professional men's hockey in Finland, where I started, in Sweden, and I was playing at, the second highest level there, they thought that looked bad
on the guys, because guys should be so much better than women, miles and miles better, right? And it was implausible to them that a woman of your ability, who would be a world champion, Olympic champion, could play in their, B league.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and I think even could have played at the higher levels. There was always
giving you that opportunity, but the opportunity wasn't there for you.
Yeah.
I can't help but reflecting. I mean, we were active. I mean, you said you watched me when you were younger, so you're obviously younger than me, but I was active at the Olympic level till 1996. And I did train with the men. I knew that to get to that next level, I had to go with people that were faster than me.
Yeah.
And I also was coached by the men's coach. And I had a very opposite experience than you. I feel like, they told me where to go a few times, there was a bit of that. But mostly they were very accepting. But I think there are two things. I wasn't in the boat with them.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So as I was a single sculler, I was trying to beat them.
Right.
And I did beat some of the guys in the single, that weren't as capable as me and not as skilled as me. physically they were stronger, but they weren't as skilled. But I also think that my coach set the tone. You know, you got to respect this woman. You got to give her some space and all those things. But I had a hard time with the women.
Yes.
I felt a lot of resentment on their behalf towards the fact that I made the decision to row with the men. And that automatically meant that I didn't respect them in their mind.
Oh, I had the same thing. I totally understand that. I had the same thing when I went overseas. You know, a lot of my teammates, they did not like that at all, you know, that I did that. And they were probably vocal about it. But for me, it was like, well, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get out of my comfort zone and push myself to the next level. Professional hockey doesn't exist. We don't play enough games for what I would like to do. And this is the path that I think will make me better. So when I come back to the national team, I'll push everyone else, you know?
Yeah.
But yes, very similar reaction.
Well, and then you have to come back. I never had to come back and play with them, right? Because like I was in the single, but I think we share that kind of pursuit of getting better, whatever it takes, even if it's unconventional. For you, it was going to a team in Sweden, playing with the guys at a time where, I mean, I remember, you know, in grade school, a girl, Wendy, who I went to school with in grade 3, and she played hockey. And I was like, why would a girl play hockey? Yeah. Like it was just such, you know, and I'm not much older than you, right? And it was just like, that is so odd. That's so different, you know? And now to think of where the women's game has come, you've been such a big part of that, you know, that little girls in Canada now dream of being you, and they dream of making the national team. Like, do you feel a little bit of pride about that?
I do. I always say to people that the thing that I'm most proud of when I look back is that like a little girl can go into any rink in this country with a bag and a stick and nobody's looking twice. They're just like, oh yeah, there's a girl playing hockey. Like we've seen hundreds today. Yeah. And when I started and the women that played before me, it was a little different experience. You'd hide in the bathroom or the boiler room, put your feet up on the stall. Hopefully no one would know who the girl was. I cut my hair really short so I looked like a boy, so they couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, wouldn't work, but okay.
And, you know, run through the lobby quickly so I could avoid the harassment of the parent until I got to the dressing room with the boys because I'd have to change.
Stop for a second. The harassment of the parents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you're a little girl.
Mm-hmm.
You're like a little girl.
Yeah, I'm little.
And you got parents harassing you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, when I look back, yeah, it was crazy.
How do you deal with that?
I remember one small town in Saskatchewan, East End, Saskatchewan, where we were playing. I was about 9, and the dressing room renovations were going on. So they had a mock room in the lobby, and they had no roof on just the walls. And they put me in there to change because it was the only place. Got to put her somewhere. Yep. And one of the moms knocked on the door, walked right in and said, "You stay away from my son on the ice. You don't belong out there." And I don't know. So something came over me and I just turned and deadpan said to her, like, well, if he could skate, then maybe he could actually keep up. And that was sort of my way of like coping. I'd put the wall up and be all tough. But I faced that quite a bit. And it was always parents from the other teams. It was never rarely like the boys wouldn't yak. They'd just try to come after you. But as I got older, then it transitioned to more on the ice. But yeah, when I look back, I'm like, oh, like no child should have had to go through what I did to play.
Yeah, I'm really sorry you had to go through that. Like, I know you're a full-grown adult now, and you know, but that is really hard.
And it's hard, yeah. When you know it is, it sucks. But at the same time, I don't know if I'd change it. Maybe I would. But like, I feel like I really developed like a lot of resiliency and the ability to cope and get through hard things.
Yeah, because actually that was abusive, what happened to you.
Oh, for sure.
And well, like that changes you. I mean, that was like, today we have names for it, right? We say abuse, we say trauma, we say PTSD. We have all these different ways of describing what an experience in childhood that difficult is. But in those days, well, it sounds like you just put your head down and you just kept going because you had an idea of what you wanted to do.
Yeah, no one was going to stop me. Initially, that time I'm playing for the Edmonton Oilers and winning a Stanley Cup. And simultaneously, I was trying to go to Harvard Medical School. Those are my two dreams, you know?
Yeah, okay.
And then obviously it changed, but I did have...
because there was no women's national team playing at the Olympics at that time when you first started, right? Like that was something that you helped create.
Yeah, it came, like I remember when they announced that I was 12 years old at a hockey school in Osoyoos, BC. My mom came running in and said, "You'll never believe women's hockey is finally in the Olympics." And I was like, oh, I have a place to go, you know? That was like, okay, I'm 12, but I'm going there. And
I find that extraordinary that you had such a strong vision of where you wanted to go before there was a place for you. I mean, that is a true trailblazer. Like literally the definition of a trailblazer. You're creating a path that has not been walked before. Wow.
I would say that's probably fair. Yeah. When I look back, I think I did a lot of hard things so that it's not so hard now, but I didn't do it with the intention of doing that. I just did it because I wanted to do it.
And I totally get that too. Like, I think in a way, as athletes, you know, we're somewhat selfish in our pursuit, right? Like you want to do this and you had that fire and you were going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like when you look back, right? And you think, wow, like true. And I also think because you were the first generation, I think a lot about the women that came before me.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah. Who made it? So who were the women who came before you who kind of made it a little, I wouldn't say there was anything easy about your path, but a little bit easier.
Yeah, like I think about the Edmonton Chimos back in the days. So Shirley Cameron, Dawn McGuire, Angela James was my first centerman. When my first year, I was 15 years old. She was the star player on the national team at the time. So she was sort of that second generation that came. And then I was sort of mentored by players like Stacey Wilson and France St. Louis, Margot Page, that really helped me. These were women at that time that they also had full-time jobs. So yeah, Frost was a teacher. Yeah, Stacey was a teacher, and you know they were doing their own things, and then they were training at night.
Well, there were no professional women's coaches back then, right?
Yeah,
I mean that's really, really recent. Where women got paid, or men, to coach women's teams, women's hockey, and rowing's not much far further ahead.
Right. Yeah. So I think all of our amateur sports in Canada were in the same boat, and you know whether it was coaching or as players too. Like these women, they'd be playing. They'd be working a full-time job, training at night. And then with the national team, I remember France St. Louis, they gave her an ultimatum in the 98 Olympics. You either quit your teaching job or go to the Olympics. There was no like leave of absence. It was
so it was very high stakes. They had to either give their career that was actually going to pay the bills for longer term than 2 years or whatever.
That's right.
The Olympic thing was, You had some consecutive, like you talk about you wanted to go to Harvard Medical School.
Yeah.
So you always had more than one dream at the same time. Now that's been a long, and congratulations. You became a doctor. I mean, like, oh my God, eh? Like what a journey that's like 16 years to finish your undergraduate. Is that true?
That's true.
Was it your undergraduate or did you do your master's in there,
16 years to get my undergrad, and then I did my master's and went into med school kind of right after that.
But you didn't get into med school right away.
No, I applied 2 times. Yeah, my second time I got in.
Can you imagine? They did not let Hayley Wickenheiser into med school the first time.
Yeah. It was kind of funny. It was but I'll say just technicality. But anyways, I did not get in, and I tell people all the time, just don't give up. Like on anything. Like I knew I was going to get in somewhere, and I just kept applying. And my it wasn't my grade. Everybody has great grades. It's just on a crapshoot, right?
Yeah, but it's a huge accomplishment, and not only just getting into med school, but like, in your book you talk about because you couldn't sleep very well. You had I almost sound like you had a sleep disorder for a while when you were playing hockey, and so you go into the emergency room because one of your friends was a doc there and just watch the surgeries.
Yeah,
I kind of like learned by watching.
I did, yeah. I could. Well, after games, I could never sleep for a couple hours because you're just so wired, and the games don't finish till 10:30 at night, right? Yeah. So it's like 1 o'clock in the morning before I'm able to relax enough to sleep. So my friend worked at the Foothills Hospital in Calgary, and she says, why don't you come in and start shadowing? Because I was finishing my master's degree. So I went in many, many nights, and I would just be like a fly on the wall in the trauma bay when traumas would come in or watch cases. And I did it for several years, actually, towards the end of my career. And I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I really like emergency medicine. And I do. I was in there today. I worked a half a shift this morning, and I worked all weekend. And I still say to myself, like, I really enjoy this.
Okay, so did people just like pee themselves when Dr. Hayley Wickenheiser comes over to treat their broken ankle? Like, are they just like, not even able to, do they recognize you? I mean, you got your scrubs on, or,
Well, in COVID, it was okay because, you've got the gown, you've got everything on. You're not recognizable, the mask and everything. And now I don't really wear a mask unless it's indicated. You have a lot of laps with patients if they recognize you. And I find it mostly works in my favor because I can build a rapport with people about something they know about me.
Yeah.
Initially I would always say, don't worry, you're going to see a better doctor than me. When I was a resident or a med student, you're really like insecure about what you're doing. And I still am. There's still so much to learn. But I feel like as days go by, I feel more confident that I can, manage most things or know what I need help for.
There was a time in my rowing career, very clear to me, in 1993 and going into 1994, where I had a lot of losses. So I double false started at the World Championships. I pretty well, in 94, was kind of favored to win. And then I went to the World Championships. So I double false started, got eliminated from the competition. It totally was devastating. Oh. Yeah, then I decided to go to the Pan American Games to have like a positive, fun experience. And then I had a cold. I took Benadryl. Benadryl was like the wrong kind of Benadryl. I mean, I think I really helped a lot of athletes after that because I remember drug testing totally changed. We even got cold medicine off the ban list and everything. But I and my teammates lost a gold medal, and I lost all my confidence. And I wanted to quit. I just felt like I couldn't get on top of the doubt, And finally, at the World Championships, like almost a year later, I just got so pissed off with myself. I just got so pissed off with feeling sorry for myself that I raced, I think, out of anger and frustration, and then I won a silver medal, and I was back in the game. And I'll tell you, that was probably my life's strongest lesson, and that I would never, ever feed fear the way that I did in that year. So I'm wondering, Hayley Wickenheiser, was there ever a time like that for you where you just thought, I don't know, I just don't know if I want to keep doing this?
I have to say no in terms of keep doing it, but there was lots and lots of highs and lows through my career. I remember when I was 15, I was playing midget AAA in Calgary, or Bantam AAA actually, and it was really a hard season because I was a target. And my mom came to me one day and said, "Are you sure you want to keep doing this? It's getting really hard." Yeah. And I was like, no. And then I actually,
it was getting hard for them to watch. It was hard for getting hit and hit again.
Yeah. And just the struggle. But I actually developed an ulcer during that year. I remember one night
at 15.
Yeah. When I turned to my dad and I said, I can't go to the rink tonight. I just can't do it. I physically can't go. And my dad was like, "That's okay. Let's just stay home and watch movies." And so I actually missed the game. And I just remember the relief of just being able to lay on the couch and not do anything, of just because of how much it took, the energy it took just to get there and get through the games. And it was the buildup. It was never when I was on the ice. It was everything around it.
Yeah.
So I had lots of moments like that, but never to the point of quitting. I think it was just it was always this prove you wrong that I had inside of me that I was like, no, I'll just prove you wrong. I'll get through it. But there was lots of times training when it got hard and you're just should I, am I going to keep playing? Should I go another season? That kind of thing. But I never really hit a wall like you did. Mm-hmm. I probably hit it more inside medicine, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Where I'd wake up in the middle I remember waking up in the middle of the night of a 26-hour OB shift, and pagers going off for the 10th time at 3 a.m, and I just threw the pager across the room, and I was like, "Deliver your own damn baby!" I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I would have moments of just physical exhaustion,
sleep deprivation.
Yeah, and just constant fatigue and thinking what the hell did I get myself into? Why am I doing this? I don't have to do this.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing. But
yeah. I mean, I think doubt, it is a natural thing, but I think a lot of people think Olympic athletes, people who achieve the best in the world, don't have those moments. So thank you for reminding us that we do.
Struggle.
Yeah, it's a struggle. You need to pager across the room. There's no end to it when you're a doctor. And The thing that really stood out to me as I've been, I obviously know you and I know a little bit about your hockey, not as much as every other Canadian, but it was just like your willingness to do things that other people wouldn't do, right? Like obviously starting from when you're young, playing with the boys, not only because you had the ability, but you also had the guts to say, this is what I want to do. This is what I need to do. Going to a men's team. Also, staying up all night to watch emergency surgeries. I wonder, would that be advice that you'd give to other people, like in terms, or do you think that's just like would you tell other people to do that kind of stuff, or are you hoping it's going to be a little easier for other people?
Do not do what I did, or do.
I read your book, and it does seem like, oh yeah, I do miss it. I'm thinking, I don't think many people are going to do that, but they might not give up on their dreams.
Yeah, I think the thing with me is that I was always willing to do hard things to get to where I wanted to go. I'm very comfortable with being uncomfortable. So that's something like in medicine, for example, come across a lot of younger students that I went through med school with, and they'd get put into uncomfortable positions and they just shy away. Whereas I would tell myself, like, anytime someone asks me if I want to do it, I would say no, but if you show me, I'll try. And because I was so comfortable as an athlete, just failing all the time. And
you're very coachable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're totally coachable. So I think from that regard, I suppose as I've gotten older, like, not everything needs to be a struggle. Not everything needs to be like, and I'm done like striving for things. These were things that I legitimately and genuinely wanted to do since I was a kid, and I've lived my dream of doing it, and now I'm just doing.
Yeah, I think that's a very powerful point, because life transitions, right?
Yeah,
and the intensity that we have as an athlete, of course, that's always going to be part of our DNA and our character and maybe our chemistry. I don't know how it all goes down, but in order to be happy, you've got to draw from different stuff, for sure. And taking that kind of intensity and that excellence and that drive, sure, applying it to medicine, of course. But how were you able to make that transition to dialing it down a little bit in terms of maybe finding a bit more balance? I mean, you had a baby, by the way. I just throw this in. You adopted this beautiful little boy, Noah.
Yeah.
When he was only a few months old. You were 21 years old.
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother conversation. But I mean, I think it speaks to your willingness to not shy away from hard things.
Yeah.
To be learning and growing while doing a whole bunch of things at once. But back to this idea of intensity, now you're shifting. So where do you find some balance now?
Well, I just enjoy that life doesn't have to be not living in the pressure cooker. The pressure. So I always say to people, you probably feel this way, maybe you don't, but nothing will ever be as much pressure as trying to win in totally medal, right?
Totally.
Nothing.
Yeah.
A code blue, a traumatic something in the emerge. It just
that's be more important. Some things are definitely important, but not as pressure.
Yeah. But it's there's a different reality and importance to things, but the pressure that you carry every day, and I see this a lot in the players I work with in the NHL. They're solely and entirely miserable when they're competing, and it's because the anxiety they feel every single day that they have to show up and be absolutely at their best. And when they retire, they change and become a completely different person. Mm-hmm. And they go, oh my gosh, I'm so happy it's over. And I remember someone telling me, you're going to be so relaxed when you retire. It's going to be great. Life's going to get so much better for you. And I was like, and I can say it's true. I mean, I love to compete and I miss the big stage and I always will. Mm-hmm. But on the other side, I train because I want to. I do things now because I want to, not because I have that pressure to perform. And yes, medicine, and it's intense, but it's not intense the way it was for me. So I did it a little differently. It's something I enjoy. I do things because I enjoy them.
Yeah, I think first of all, I do feel exactly like you in terms of the pressure of sitting in an Olympics starting gates, knowing that you got 7 minutes and you've trained for, 5, 10, 15 years, and you could screw up or you could win an Olympic gold medal. It's just, there's just nothing like it. And being able to breathe, manage, get yourself just amped up enough, but not too amped up, and all of those things. I can speak in front of 5,000 people. Of course, I'm nervous, but nothing's going to kind of compare, hosting this podcast. I've never hosted a podcast before, but somehow I just think, it'll just unfold. It'll work out. I'll be prepared, I'll do what I can, but I don't have to. Also, I think there's this transition for me that happened where I started to realize that my perfectionism was starting to limit my output.
Yeah.
Where my need to be so good at something right out of the gates was making me not do stuff. And I think I still struggle a little bit with that. Like, I should have done this podcast a couple of years ago, but I wanted to, I don't know, I just had to wait until I got so pissed off with myself. Right? That, like, I finally did it, right? And we're all sorts of different personalities and there's all sorts of reasons. But I think this idea of like, that life can get better.
Yeah.
I'm turning 60 this year. And you look amazing. Thank you. I was waiting for that compliment. Did you hear that, boss? God, I don't know. Yeah. No, but it's like,
yeah.
And I think, gosh, this could be the most incredible decade in a way, because a lot of the insecurities, and I don't sense that you had the same kind of insecurities I had. I think I had a lot of insecurities about being enough, being good enough, being capable, imposter, stuff, especially in my professional career. But a lot of that just is behind me now. And now I feel like you're younger than me, but I do feel like we're kind of in the same place where it's like, I just want to do stuff that matters to me.
Yeah.
That I'm excited about, I'm interested in. And what a beautiful place to be. And you deserve it. Like you deserve it. You have worked so hard for so long. You've represented Canada and you've changed the lives of like millions of people, really. And so, I mean, you're still being ambitious. You still work the emergency room, but you also deserve some peace and some contentment.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. My motto now, it's funny, in medicine is suck less every day, because really, I went from being this veteran and this perfection as an athlete, chasing perfection as an athlete, which never exists, right? To complete neophyte, a rookie in medicine. And what I like about medicine is you can't possibly know it all, and you're constantly learning every day. So I actually, for the first time in my life, was so okay to be just average. Just let me be good enough to just get through it and be average, because I know every day I'll figure it out. I'll suck a little bit less the next day, but it's going to be, it's enough. It's okay.
To me, that would be a great approach in medicine, not to suck less. I mean, I hope you don't suck, but like, but
we're generally like business.
You're learning, but also that's you're going to be the kind of doctor who says, "Oh, I need another opinion." You're going to be the kind of doctor who says, like, "Can somebody help me?" And I think ego gets in the way, not just for doctors, but for all of us, right? Where like the power of the question, the power of asking for help, it is so transforming, and it's something that a lot of people have a hard time doing.
They do. And you know what I would say is the thing that I appreciate from my athletic career is that I failed and so much, right? Like someone skate faster, shoot harder, lift more weights. Like you never can do enough or be perfect. But I was okay with failure because that was how I was going to get better. And what I noticed sort of in the real world outside of the bubble is that a lot of people are afraid to do that. And I'm just not. Like, I'm not afraid to like mess up, because now in medicine, for example, like, number one, I'm going to be safe. Number two, I'm going to call for help. Number three, I don't know anything or much. So that is what it is. And I think a lot of people get in trouble when they try to put on that persona. But I think athletes, you just get comfortable with just, well, I'll pick myself.
You can ask the stupid question, right? Like you can say, actually, how many times have I sat around a board meeting and asked a stupid question and then three other people say, oh my God, I had the same question, right? Like there isn't a stupid question, because literally this idea that so many of us, and I see it too in the working world a lot and on boards, where people are faking it rather than just asking questions or saying, this doesn't make sense to me, I don't understand. I think if more of us were doing that, it would be a better world. But
you'd have more real dialogue and you'd probably get to the answer faster,
There's this one part of your book that really stood out to me when you were talking about you came into playing in Sweden and you had a smaller injury. I think it was your knee.
My knee,
yeah. Your knee.
Yeah.
And so, but you decided You were going to give your knee 10 days to heal. Knee? You have 10 days to heal. That is such an athlete thing to do. Okay. 10 days, not a day more. Okay. And so after 10 days was over, you got on the ring. You were not ready.
Yeah.
And you got hit.
Yeah.
And it was an asshole of a hit, if you don't mind me saying. Like,
You know what?
he nailed you, killed me. Yes, he did.
Yeah. I still remember it.
You went into your change room and you threw up.
Yeah. I had my head turned. I turned like this. It's called a suicide pass. I got from my defenseman, which I should have just let the puck go and looked, but I didn't because I wasn't ready. I hadn't played in several weeks. And then he was huge and he killed me. He just ran me over. And I didn't get knocked out, but I didn't know where I was for a second. I remember the trainer grabbed the back of my pants because it happened right at the boards. And he lifted me into the bench and sat me on the bench. And then all the guys on the team just looked at me like, oh my God, like they knew it was bad. And I'm like, nope, I'm fine. Everything's okay because really, I did not want to. I was just injured. I just missed a bunch of time. I am not going to be injured again because they're going to say she can't handle it or whatever. And I got injured actually playing with the women's national team, not even within
That's how it hurt.
Yeah. So anyway, I went into the room. I threw up. I was concussed for sure. And then I played through it. I trained through it, which is not something I'm proud of. But I was the only breadwinner at the time. I had a contract. I felt like I didn't have a choice. I was already injured.
Yeah. So, and the pressure is that you were feeling to prove yourself because you were the only woman. And then you talk about, and of course I'm interested in this because I'm interested in mental health, and you talk about having an experience with depression for the first time, I think, after the concussion. Is that correct?
Well, I went into like a bit of like what we call like an Olympic hangover after the 98 Olympics. Funk. Yeah, we lost in 98, got the silver. I don't know if I was like clinically depressed, but I was certainly in a funk. And so I think that was the first time I ever, because I had no perspective. What I was who I was as an athlete was who I was as a person. I couldn't separate the two.
Yeah.
19-year-old.
And that was 98, did you say?
Yeah.
When you're younger.
But after that hit, that was like, I couldn't sleep. I dropped my son off at school in the morning. I'd come home. I would sit in the dark, drink a lot of coffee to get myself going. Practice was later in the afternoon. I would go to practice, train, pick my son up from school, fake it to get him sort of organized to bed. And then I would just sort of like, we call it the holy shit handles on the car. I would just hold on to for several weeks and hoping that it would get better day after day. And so it was a dark place to be at that time.
And that, because not everybody experiences mental illness. We all have mental health. That's what my philosophy is. I mean, sometimes we're on different parts of the spectrum. And then sometimes we slip into mental illness. It can be an injury. It can be life circumstances. It can be chemistry. Who knows, right? We know it's really complex. But I think if you haven't experienced some of that, it is sometimes hard to really empathize with how crappy it can feel. And do you think having that concussion, having the post-Olympic stuff, has made you understand mental illness more profoundly?
I think so. I think my younger athlete self would have said, you got to suck it up, get up, keep going. But I think the combination of what I experienced as an athlete, in hockey, you're often banged up. But I had a lot of teammates who went through concussions and struggled through.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah. And you lost a really good friend, Marty?
Steve Montador. Yeah. So Steve Montador played in the NHL for 12 years, and the research on his brain after showed CT, but the lead up to his death was concussions, substance abuse, and personality change. And he was literally one of my best friends. I trained with him for many years, and it was a tragic ending to like a great human that we all kind of saw. And literally there was sort of an intervention plan for Steve, like 5 days after he passed away. That was sort of, we were right there, but I regret not stepping in sooner. I just didn't have the tools and the knowledge to what to do. Yeah. But now I think with my medical training, if I went through that scenario again, I would have been much more confident to step in sooner. But you just don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. And I think, for some of our listeners who might have somebody in their life who's in a deep depression, who may be having suicidal thoughts. You know, how can you help? Like, how can a person help? Not a medical doctor, but a friend.
The best thing is to reach out. I think that's, you know, we often wonder with friends or family that are struggling and withdraw, like, oh, maybe we should leave them be. But I find it's the complete opposite. You know, it often just checking in on someone. And I think if you're really worried, like seriously worried, no one is ever going to fault you for overcalling it.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
If it's you know, calling 911 or reaching out to someone in the community mental health, welfare check, whatever it is, there's lots of different ways. That person, when they feel better again, I don't think would ever fault you for doing it in that moment.
Yeah.
It's hard.
And we need to do more of that anyhow, don't we? Like checking in with each other. And it's easy to assume it's all going to be okay, or especially with high-functioning humans. And we know that a lot of high-functioning humans, the flip side of that is they might experience mental health issues as well. And we don't always think, like, we might have a feeling.
Yeah.
Like, I know I've felt that before, where I just feel something's not right with somebody, and then I don't act on it, you know, and that, you know, it ended with, you know, their death. But like,
yes,
afterwards I thought, like, oh, I should have had the guts to just say, are you okay? But even more though, can I drop by? Can I, you know, let's have a cup of tea together? Because one of the things I experience, depression, it's mostly super well managed. But I would say once, maybe every 18 months, you know, something happens and I just start going the wrong way. I start going south. And it's taken me years to know and to be disciplined really about reaching out. Like, now I know, tell my doctor, right? You know, like, I'll tell my doctor I'm struggling.
Yeah.
I'll call a friend and say I'm struggling. And I'll tell my partner. I used to not tell my partner.
Yeah.
They just all of a sudden be like, what's going on? You know, where's this coming from, right?
Yeah.
So just, but I also think as we talk more about it, and I think now in hockey, we're talking more about that correlation between all the hits.
Yeah.
And not, even if it's not concussions, but the physicality of the game sometimes, and how that can be actually a trauma. And I know that we don't like using that word when it comes to sport, but, you know, it's true, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, the more we talk about and normalize the conversation, in my mind, I mean, that's one of the reasons I started Unsinkable, is to normalize the conversation around mental health, to talk more about it, to open people's eyes that some of the highest achievers in this country also have experienced mental illness.
For sure, yeah. Well, it's like in hockey we call it the micro hits. It's not the big hit that it can often lead to concussion symptoms. It's the little ones that you don't see where players will report symptoms. So it's the same thing in life. It's the micro traumas of the everyday that people can experience, and you just don't know sometimes which one is going to set someone over the edge. And so, you know, to your point of being able to reach out and check in on friends and family and loved ones, it's a hard thing. But we know that, you know, we're talking about it more in sport and in the NHL, which is this tough male-dominated world. What I see quite often is players aren't afraid to say, like, I think I've got a concussion. I don't feel well. I see it all the time. And when
they're afraid, or they're not afraid.
They're not afraid. They're less afraid to step up and say, hey, something's going on. Yeah. So it's much more open environment than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, the new generation is tuned in. Like, yeah, I'm thinking about your story and your journey, and like, how did you ever like shift gears from, you know, the woman, the young girl, really, who was being taunted by the parents and having to have that thick skin, and like to then getting to the place now you're working with these young athletes, right? As the AGM of the Maple Leafs. I mean, these guys are pretty young.
Yeah, they are.
And, you know, how do you show up, and how did you make that transition to being more open and vulnerable?
Well, I think as an athlete, I was crazy. I was so intense. I can't imagine other people training and, you know, going about their life the way that I did, and just the intensity, the way that I trained and prepared. And now I think I've almost gone the other way, where I think I'm at times too soft, because I'm like, no one would ever suffer, you know, they shouldn't suffer the way that I did in that sense. So I have a 24-year-old son. Most of these players are between 19 and, late 20s that I deal with. And so I'm looking at my son, looking at them, seeing my son. And so it's just a different lens where I think, and I'm older now and I see things a little bit different. So I sometimes have to find myself actually pushing them because I'm going a little bit the other way. But I'm really careful about their mental health, and I want to make it a safe space where they feel. And I have had players come and say, I need help, A, B, C, D, E. And that's like the greatest compliment, because you created an environment where they feel comfortable, that they could say it in an environment where that's not always the case.
So here's a question. Do you think you can win? Do you think you can be the best in the world and still pay attention to athletes' mental health, still keep them safe, still nurture a positive mental health environment?
Yes, you can. I think you can.
It's good to hear.
Yeah, I think there's a quote that I use all the time is, it's one thing to be the best in the world. It's another thing to be the best for the world. But the best teams and the most highest functioning people that I know can do both.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you should strive for. It does not make us soft or less intense to care about people's mental health and their well-being and who they are, and ask how you're doing, and still say, get your ass in the weight room, run faster, lift more. I'm going to push you to be your best. It's a fine line, but you can still do both. And I think you have to, right? You have to be able to, if you create the environment and the conditions where people feel open to express themselves, and I think you're in a good place where you can now demand them to be at their best.
I had a special relationship with my last coach, Mike Spracklin, and he was a coach of the men's team. So, to my story earlier on about joining the men's team, training with the men, and I think he was different with me. Because I was a single sculler. I think he was harder on the men's 8 and the other teams. But I remember him telling me one day, he said to me, I'm sitting in his rental car at the San Diego Crew Classic, and there's a rain delay, and we're, sitting in this like little tiny compact rental car and watching the rain sheeting down. And he's only been coaching me for a month, and he looks up from his coaching notes. He looks at me, he says, like, are you afraid? Are you nervous? And I'm like, okay, what do I say? Like, what's the right answer? This is like one of the greatest coaches in the world. Like, what's the right answer?
Right.
So I kind of croaked a little. And then he says to me, oh, yeah, that's good. That's really good. That means that you care.
Yeah.
And then he's like, the Romanian's scared.
Yeah.
The German's afraid. And it's the first time, I'd been rowing 10 years at this point, the first time that somebody told me it was okay to be afraid. And it was such a liberating moment, because it was affirming that all of these feelings that I had, that I thought I was kind of ashamed of, that I could get so nervous before a race, that I'd be so afraid before a race. And he's telling me it's totally normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, to me, in a way, was like the soft approach. He wasn't just telling me to suck it up, to not be afraid, to not feel my feelings. He was saying, you can feel your feelings. You can be so terrified you can hardly swallow, which was like, I had like dry mouth, like, so I could hardly swallow. But you can also go out there and kick ass.
Yeah.
And I think he wrote that line really, really well. And I really benefited from that softness, as well as this killer, training program that we were on, where we were training 20 times a week, where I had really a lot of volume. If you were to look back, and I mean, again, I think we're at a stage of our life where there is some looking back, and you think, I know I do. I think, how could things have been different? Could I have I think sometimes about the women's team, for instance, could I have been more connected to the women's team? Could I have been softer in some way? And I like, the answer's kind of like, no, like I could be now, but
I know,
right? I could be now, right?
Yeah.
But you're kind of like, to do what you had to do, what I had to do, you had to be who you were then, but now you're different. But if you were to look back and look at that 13-year-old Hayley, who was already, you were already like almost a world champion at that age, but what would you say? What would you say to her? What advice would you give her?
People ask this. I mean, other than like sometimes you need to calm down, be more patient. I wouldn't give her any advice. That's good though. That's good. Sometimes you just need to calm down. Yeah. Chill out for a second. Take a breath.
Smell the roses.
Yeah, exactly. Just chill and, and
it would have been more enjoyable, right?
But yes, probably it would have been. But I don't know. I don't know if I would have given myself any advice, because I think sometimes if I hadn't have, like you say, if I hadn't have done or been who I was, like, would I have been able to get through all the crap to get to where I had to go? So there probably is something. I think that would be it if I gave myself any advice. But yeah, I mean, I certainly did a lot of dumb things, but it was, I kind of believe in like no regrets. You just
no. I'm with you on that one. I think I would have told my 13-year-old self, I would have just let her know it was going to be okay.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, like it was all gonna
work out.
I think I kind of knew that. I believed it in my deep unconscious self.
Yeah,
but like I didn't know it. It wasn't too much on the surface. And
yeah,
the last question I have for you is one I'm asking all my guests. It's really about, like, reading for me has played a pretty fundamental role in opening up worlds for me. And, I grew up in Mississauga. I'm first generation Canadian. My parents are both German.
Okay.
And I remember the experience of reading my first book, which was a book about Annie Sullivan and Helen Keller. Oh. Annie Sullivan taught Helen Keller how to communicate, who was deaf and couldn't speak. And I remember that because that was really like the first book I read. And it opened up a whole world to me. And that's what I really think about books, is like a world that I might never live, that I couldn't live, whether it's, 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, whatever it is. It's like, oh, I didn't even know this stuff was happening. So I just wonder if there's a book that you can think of that, I don't know, somehow really affected you.
Yeah, well, the one that popped in my head instantly was Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was a pretty impactful book for me. It still is.
Talk about resilience and
hope. Mm-hmm. Just like, we can get through hard things, right? We can do hard things in life. If he could do that.
I mean, okay, so that's like totally next level thinking about living in a concentration camp with your wife. Every day, you could die. And you're seeing the absolute worst of humanity. And he would focus on the little things, right? He would focus on his breath. He would focus on the wind. Yeah. Is this right? Is this the right book?
It is the right book. It is.
You're 100%.
Yeah, it's about, just being present in every moment, and that no matter what happens to us on the outside, we can always control how we feel on the inside. So it's not the circumstances that are the trajectory for our life. It's how we choose to react to them, really. And just the way, like, that story is just like what they survived and went through. But I think about that a lot. I think about that inside medicine, how, you might look at someone and think, for God's sakes, get over yourself. It's not that bad. But to them, it's the biggest drama or the worst day of their life. And so you have to meet everyone kind of where they're at. And so I think, that book is quite a profound book that I read many years ago. And right now, to be very honest, I don't read that much because I read so much in medicine. I'm tired of it. But I do a lot of I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yeah. It's like a sort of, I just want to thank you for being on. And I got to tell you, you have led such a impactful life. You really have made such a difference in the past, but you're still making a difference and you're still having such positive impact. Wickfest, which is women's hockey camps that, occur all over Canada, different times of the year. That's one of the many ways that you continue to give back and kind of, reach your hand out to these young hockey players and say, hey, I got some stuff that might be of value for you. You bring in all sorts of people to talk to them because you're looking for the whole person, aren't you?
Yeah.
And that's what I really saw when I read the material on Wickfest. Is like, you're looking at the hockey player, but that hockey ends.
Yeah.
And you got to develop a whole human.
Yeah. And I think the best athletes, the holistic development of the athlete, the person, it all adds together, right? We know that the best athletes, not the best rower, you're the best athlete. And I think we develop, in this country, we're hockey crazy, but we have to develop athletes and people, and that's going to be better hockey players. So that's my whole theory around WickFest, and you can check it out at wickfest.com.
Well, I'm going to check it out, and I've offered to come and speak to these young girls and young women, and just keep doing what you're doing. It's so inspiring. I look forward to following you, and I also hope to get out for a bike ride with you. We have that same passion of you'd probably kick my ass, but I'm not afraid. Should I be afraid? I think I should.
Oh, you're tough. I know you're tough as nails, one of my Olympic heroes. So it's an honor to do this with you, Silken. Thank you. Thank you, Hayley. Yeah.
Thanks for tuning into Inflection Time. I hope our conversation inspired you to think about inflection points in your own life. If you enjoyed our chat, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It really helps. Remember, every challenge is an opportunity to grow. So keep embracing those turning points. Until next time, I'm Silken Laumann, and this is Inflection Time. I'd like to thank my sponsor, Good Life Fitness, and Tall Boy Water. A big thank you to our incredible guests for sharing their stories with us. I'd also like to thank our fabulous production team, our executive producer, Michelle Archer, our producer, Phil Kluba, and our communications director, Christine Bays. Inflection Time was created by Archer Co., Acronym, and me. As an Olympic athlete, it's not surprising I love working out, and I love going to the gym. Strength training is so important for bone health, for metabolism, and our partner is Good Life Fitness. They are offering a 7-day pass to all of our listeners. Visit our description to access your 7-day pass.